Welcome to Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. Innovative Strategy is a show designed to help people with their business and personal financial literacy, but not in the way that you have known. This is not your grandpa's financial literacy, as Bill uses his 30-plus years in the financial industry to stretch your financial box from, let's say about a 30,000-foot view of things. Bill and his guests have helped hundreds of clients achieve and surpass their financial goals. If you have any questions, please email Bill at bill@billhasse, that's bill@billhasse.com, or reach out to him right here at 216thenet@gmail.com. Welcome in. Of course, today, stacking the deck, the pitch deck, that is. Bill, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Ken?
I am well, thank you, sir.
Getting close to the holidays. Happy final Hanukkah.
We're in the holiday.
Happy last day of Hanukkah. Today goes to my friends that celebrate.
That's right.
It's the final day.
Francesca.
And you know what? We have a guest who's been on the show before. And has some new things going on.
Glutton for punishment. That's
glutton for punishment. You know that we were talking about all the love that comes on.
That's right.
Welcome back, Francesca, and Francesca's partner, Brian. Welcome back today. Brian and Francesca are working on helping folks put together pitch decks.
Yeah.
Slightly important thing if you're trying to raise funds.
And how?
So welcome. Thanks for joining us, Francesca and Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so what's going on now? What do you got going on?
So I think the last time that I was on the show, we were talking about exit strategy, right? So the end life cycle of a business. And so today we're going to venture into pitch decks. So more on the front side of the transactions. So Brian, do you want to introduce yourself? I'm a CFO type person. I'm with Green Orchid Consulting and working with those smart business owners who are looking for the strategic moving forward. So Brian, I'll let you say hello.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Francesca. Always good to see you. And although we've worked together for almost a year, we've never actually met, which is amazing. So I'm Brian Keltner. You know, I'm an award-winning marketer, but when we talk about pitch decks, I think a lot of people think, I'm just going to make my presentation look pretty. That's such a small part of what we're going to be talking about as far as pitch decks and getting in front of the right people and what does that look like and some of the pitfalls. So I'm excited for the topic, obviously, and excited to be here. I appreciate that, Bill.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I'm excited to learn about this. I have a little bit of background on this area, enough to be dangerous. So I'm excited to learn it because I know there's a lot of ways to raise capital nowadays. It's not just go to your VC or your angel investor. There are other kinds of folks out there all over the place. A place like Silicon Valley is a very friendly place actually to go to try and raise capital. But tell us, how do you help people? How do you find the folks, first of all? Because I'm starting a business. How do I know you even exist?
Okay, well, which is kind of funny because people seek us out. We've done very little marketing. We both have a large network of business owners, and it's when they're in that advanced stage is really what I love to grab a hold of, but also from the beginning. So they have ideation, it's done. They think, okay, I'm ready to start a business. Now I need some money, seed money to get started. And that could take in the form of, hey, I just need a one pager to come on in. And when I say when we talk about a pitch deck, I need 24 slides. Well, maybe not. Depends on who the receiver of this is. And we've identified almost 40 different slides that could be used, but you don't need to use them all. And so when they do find us, and it's usually by way of referral, we take them in. And I tell you what, and Bill, you appreciate this from the financial background, is the numbers tell a story. And a lot of times business owners don't know what story they're trying to tell or how to tell it, and if it's even accurate. So Francesca will look at that story and we'll hope to make sense of it, because usually the numbers don't necessarily align with what is true and accurate. So she's got a great way of digging into it, bringing that story out so that it can be told properly to a potential funder.
Business owners have a tendency, and we've been hearing about this in the news, to inflate their value. So, I know you folks, and I know you've got a CPA background, Francesca. So I know you know your numbers. You know how to get to them. I believe in the past you and I have worked together where we've gotten some valuations done for businesses. And back in the day when you were doing the succession. That's outstanding. So, fill me in. Now we know you get the referrals and everything, but what is it specifically we're helping them do? These clients do.
So I want to just go back on the referrals. Interestingly enough, Bill, the investors are sending us people, because they're looking at the pitch deck and they're saying, it's like, this isn't what we need.
Yeah.
Or we have other people that are coming to us saying, we're not getting money. And I look at the pitch deck and, 5 or 10 minutes, I can take a look and say, you're missing like major pieces here. So it's interesting that the investors are sending us people to help them to tell the story, to make sure they have the right slides, to make sure it presents well, so that then they can take it and take it to their group. So we're seeing it on two different ways. And I think that's very, very important. Okay, so now let's go back to your other question.
I appreciate that, because I understand that, this is very important, because most people don't know how to put a pitch deck together, right? But they're going out there trying to raise capital. And it's very, very common that they're getting shot down right and left, because they just don't have the right information put together properly. So that's awesome. But good. Let's go forward.
Well, I think the question that Francesca can really nail down is what have you seen as far as the numbers coming in, and how do you help them and make those adjustments?
The folks you're working with.
Yeah. So I'm going to go two places.
Go ahead.
Say that again, Bill. I didn't hear you.
No, you said you were going to go two places.
So what we see are two different things. So we see two different things that are coming in. One being that when they bring in the numbers, you're punching holes in them as soon as you're looking at the numbers. So you need to make sure that the numbers reflect properly. And so I'll just give you one example. So they have a company and it's growing exponentially year over year over year. But then I look at the insurance line, right? Just looking at one line, and it either stays the same or it decreases. And so that's just like one line item in the financials that you can start picking apart. Once you start seeing one number that doesn't look right, the credibility of that financial just went by the wayside, because I'm poking holes and I already found one thing. And if it's not explainable, then they're going to say, I don't have a good, warm, fuzzy feeling with this. So those numbers are so important. And I'm going to add this as well. If slide 1 says your revenue is $50 million or $10 million or 300,000, then slide 2 better reflect the same information. And so I see problems where people make those simple mistakes where the slides aren't all telling the same story. So it's like it didn't go through quality control with the numbers. The other thing that I want to bring up, and people don't think about this, I know you're looking for money for your business. Sometimes if we have to talk to a bank, if we have to talk to who's ever going to loan us money or give us equity or whatever the case may be, your personal finances need to be in order. And if they're not, that tells another story that's not very good. And I think people miss that they don't have their own house in order. And then somebody starts asking some other questions on a personal note, and then we're kind of stuck. So that is a question out of the gate that we are going to ask, and make sure that the personal financials are in good repair, so that if we have to fix something, we have to pay down debt, whatever the case may be, we've got this addressed on the front end, where we're working on it while we're putting the actual pitch deck together.
What great value you're bringing to the table, because, you know, I'm a business owner. I want to acquire some funds. I can Google, how do I write a pitch deck? You know, and then I think I've got it. Maybe I use AI to help me out. And we really got it down, but it's never going to tell you this aspect. Right? And there's probably many other aspects it doesn't tell you about. I wanted to go back, and because I'm not sure I understand when you say, you know, that expanding exponentially year over year, but insurance is going down. What do you mean by that?
So you have an insurance policy, and as your company continues to grow, right? So and again, depending upon what's lumped in, is it workers' comp that's included in there? Is it liability insurance? Is it, do you have E&O insurance? Whatever the insurance is. But I would expect to see, even by just plain inflation, I would expect to see that number probably growing if the company is growing. And so if it's not, and again, it's just one area that I will look at, but sometimes you see, and they'll say, well, we're going to open more locations, and we're going to bring on more vehicles, and we're going to do all these different things. And again, I'm just picking one line item.
Yeah.
But if that line item isn't increasing and matching that story, then I'm going to say there's a problem. And so you want to make sure, as you're looking through all the expenses, as you're looking at cost of goods sold, that the story that you're telling matches all the way through your forecast. And sometimes I'll say to them, well, this number is off. And they'll say, oh yeah, we know. Okay. Great. You know. So
yeah, that's interesting. Because I'm not sure the business owner would think about, you know, with your business growing and everything, oh, I need to increase my insurance, which is going to cost me more money. And what business owner is going to run to his insurance agent and say, hey, charge me more?
Well, but at the same time, maybe I've gone from a $500 deductible up to a $5,000 deductible. Right? So there can be legitimate. Yeah, go ahead, Francesca.
So I was just going to say, so yes, there can be those differences, but what we do is we'll put, here's our list of assumptions. And so if we're going to do that, I'm going to have that listed as an assumption when we put these financials together. But you're right, Ken.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, and thank you for helping me understand that more clearly. An important factor. Yeah. Consistency.
Yes.
Always important.
Well, I mean, the pitch deck, and help me if I'm, because I'm a small business, right, and I don't ask for a lot of money. You know, so a pitch deck is here's the pretty painting that Bob Ross has created. I still kind of have a blank canvas, right? So this is what it's supposed to be. And I need your help to give me that money so that I could create this white canvas the same as Bob Ross does.
And Ken, was there a question in that? I'm kind of missed from the story.
Well,
although
yeah.
I love Bob Ross.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, for people who don't use pitch decks often, right? The pitch deck is a story of what you want, or what you're. Here's why, Brian, I need $20 from you, because you know, my kid comes to me and says, hey, I know we're at the movie theater, but I need $45. What do you need for? Well, I need to get juju beads. I got to get Mike and Ike's a pop and popcorn. I'm like, $45, right? Here, I got it in my purse, right? You know what I'm saying? I just say, so that's the pitch deck is really that, where I'm coming to you, Brian, and saying, listen, here's the picture of what it's supposed to be, and this is the story that I'm telling you, so that you give me that $45.
Well, I will say this, Ken. If it's my kids, they won $45. I start with $35. What do you need $25 for? Here's 15.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
but exactly, you'd mentioned some of the things that here's what we need it for. Here's how it's going to be used. There's a plan and there's a team involved. And I'll say that a lot of people get sunk because they're like, who's part of your team? Well, my CEO is my wife. My my maintenance is my kids. So you start seeing some friends and family on the C-suite decision making strategy side, and they may not be a really good fit. And that's something to consider. You're asking somebody to invest in your business, and it would be nice if it's a little bit more than just your family and home bank, your pocket. To come to the table. So putting that team together is also important. There's a lot of little aspects to this, but in telling your story is where are you coming from? Where are you going to? And it's not just the numbers that tell that story. It's everything about your pitch. So the copy or the words that you use, are they reflective of who you are, who your company is, the value you bring? And we look at who is this going to be pitched to. For example, if it's me and I got big heartstrings, I want to know about the family. I want to know about your history. If it's somebody else who is all about the numbers, then you push the numbers. That's what they're interested in. Others, I want to know who your family is. I want to be spending time with you. I want to know about you. So we want to tell that story in the pitch deck and get ready for them to read it.
Very important, right? Facts tell, stories sell.
Yes.
Very important.
So I want to add one more thing to this. I had a client and they asked for $300,000. They thought that was enough money. One, it wasn't enough money, right? So they didn't ask for what they really needed. And there were certain things once they got the money. And I said to them, you need to make sure you've got financials. You need to explain what you're using this money for. You need to keep in touch with your investor. So all these different communication pieces. So a year later, he comes back to me and says, we're looking for $2 million. Can you help me? And I said, all right, well, the first guy gave you 300,000. Have you talked to them? Oh yeah, we can't go back to them.
Hey.
Okay. So, so we spent the money. We have no accountability of what we spent the money on. And now we can't go back to that person. So when you do get money, again, it's just like if I borrow money from Brian, Brian's not going to loan me more money if I don't make sure I pay him back or I keep him in the loop of what's going on, right? And so you've got to maintain those relationships as well. And if you get money, one of my clients, I was just very fearful. She was looking for $6 million. If you're looking for $6 million, and what I said is, like, I'm going to hold you to the fire with this. And this is serious when you're getting this much money. And we have to be accountable. We have to do things properly. We have to make sure that we have accountability, that we're maintaining that communication. Because one, if something starts going a little sideways, you've built this relationship with this person. But two, if you need another tranche of money, you have someone who believes in you, has seen the progress, has seen your vision. You're making good on what you said you were going to make. They're going to be invested in you. And when they're invested in you, the opportunity of them to continue to invest with you is important.
I absolutely agree. I mean, do you help your clients determine how much they should be asking for?
To some extent, what I've seen, and I know Francesca can speak to this, is they ask for too little, and it's like you're going to need some buffer space in here whether they're hiring people. Well, what's that going to look like? And projections out, they usually ask for not enough, and you have to increase that because they go, oh, I can come back for that later. Get everything out there all at one time, and then you can also set it up to where it's staged, but the full picture is already painted. Whether Bob Ross did it or not, the picture's already been painted, so they can see what it is that you're actually looking to achieve.
Well, now do these folks that are going, you're pitching to, aren't they going to come back and ask, what have you already received in the past? And how have you used those funds? They're going to look for accountability, right? Are you a reliable person? Are you good with money? Because as well as anybody, a lot of people are not good with money, right? We don't grow up learning anything about money.
Yeah.
But I like you say, I like what you're saying. It's not uncommon for people to ask for too little, thinking if they ask for too much, nobody's going to help them out. But then they have to keep going back to the well. Not a good place.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at the different slides that you're putting in your pitch deck, so having that cash flow analysis, right? So you have your forecast, and we know what we're going to be hitting in sales, and we know how much cash we're going to be burning through. And so those numbers are incorporated in, okay, so we need $1 million just to stay afloat to do the project for 3 years. So what we need for research development, pushing the product out, but then we're not going to make money until year 3. So I need funding until year 3, and really understanding those numbers and being true to the numbers and making sure everybody understands that if you say, I'm going to sell 10 widgets a year, you're going to sell 10 widgets a year. So did you take did you do a proof of concept of the product? Did you get people to look at it? Are your price points right? And so there was one gentleman that we were working with, and the product that they were doing, their sample that they did, and they built like a multi-million, 5 years down, we were like at $25 million, but they built their sample on reaching out to 10 friends to say, would you use this? And that was their whole sample, 10 friends, but they never talked about price. And so for me, that's meaningless because you didn't get enough data to know if you sell that.
Exactly. Right. You're borrowing $1 million. You hope each widget's going to sell for more than 100,000, right? Is your widget that you're building really at that value range? That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of scary thinking about you starting and building a business, and we're not going to bring in any money for 3 years. And we're growing, so we're going to have to bring on more employees, higher insurance costs, other costs that are going to go and increase on us. That's a scary thought. I hope you solopreneurs and entrepreneurs out there listening in, this is part of the challenge of taking on as an entrepreneur. You're the one who's taking on the risk.
Well, what are the key parts, or what do you guys find are the key parts of the pitch deck that people leave out, right? So being a small company myself, I was kind of, and I'm in my mid to early 50s, right? I was told, your pitch deck is kind of your SWOT analysis, right? So what is it that you guys find that people miss the most outside of just maybe numbers or whatever? What part of that pitch deck is being left off?
We call that the triple threat. So we've actually addressed that and would love to share it. But the whole thing is in 3 parts, and I'll cover very, very briefly. So sales and marketing, they don't even know in many cases who their ideal client is, their messaging. We can go on and on about that. Mitigation and it's kind of the used car guy who wants to sell his car, so he doesn't want to tell about all the problems within the car.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a red flag. When I see that, I'm like, okay, so if your supply chain goes down, what's your backup? And we've seen this during the hard times of late. And it's like, well, we don't have one. And it's like, well, you need to adjust for that. And also the cost should that happen to get your supply chain up and running, keep you in business. And then they don't know who they're pitching to. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest holdback. They're like, I need money. Who can, just in front of anybody and everybody I can, versus really narrowing that down is who's a good connection for me that is interested in not just what I do, but how I do it, where I'm at, what my whole modeling is. And so we take a lot of that guesswork out, and we've already have the VC funders, the capital and banks. So they're already there, lined up. So we know how they want their information presented and what's important to them. And that's huge.
Yeah, I like that. So
I agree. I mean, you can sit there and think, oh, who do I know is super wealthy that can afford to give me the money I want?
And of course, I just listed them all. So now nobody needs to go get the book, although it's free.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to get the book now. That's it. But no, there's a whole lot more to it, and we've dived into it. But that I hopefully can answer.
Well, yeah, I know. Of course, you don't want to give away the secret sauce, but I mean, it's so important because there's so much information out there now. Hey, I Google it, I come up with a fillable PDF or something, and to your point, Brian, and hey, here's my pitch deck. I put it. It's like a cover letter for a resume, right?
I did it just like they told me to.
That's right. That's right.
And why aren't you buying into this and giving me money?
Right.
So
I think Brian, I'm sorry, I have a little delay here. So I think one of the things that Brian talked about is, and again, these are the discussions that Brian and I are always having, but you brought up the resume.
Yeah.
Right. And so Brian's analogy is, do you want to just send your resume in and be in the stack of 1,000 resumes? Or do you want somebody who at the company who knows the HR person to say, hey, this person would be really good for that position? And so I think that goes back to what you were saying. You're just reaching out to anybody. But if you know someone who knows who the investors are, who knows the groups that are out there, and if we're walking it in saying, you need to see this is really good, or we present it to, our groups, you got a higher chance of getting funding versus you're just aimlessly out there trying to find money.
Yeah. I can tell you from personal experience, you don't want to go out to your networking group and say, hey, anybody know any investors? We're looking for money. Don't do that. You'll find people begging you to work with them. And we know all the top VC people. We have A, B, and C levels, and but really what we need to do is we like the way you put your pitch deck together, but we need to tweak it a little bit. You need to go through our program, and we'll get it all perfect for you. Then we'll hook you up with these guys. And you got to be careful who you're working with. I know you, Francesca, and Brian. We've had a few conversations, and I know you're wonderful people to work with. I know you're brilliant at what you do. But I have seen people out there that all they're trying to do is sell their wares, and just trying to sell a pitch what they, you go through my program for $50,000, and I guarantee you I'll get you in front of my very best VCs. And then you ask people, well, what do VCs look for? What do they want in return? That's a big question I hear a lot from a lot of people, and you're aware of that, typically, correct?
Yeah, we get that a lot, and whether it's a piece of the pie, but I tell you, most of if it's just the numbers, we have people in our association that, a $50 million floor, and they could fund small governments, and they do. So, I don't know that they have a ceiling, quite frankly, and I've been too intimidated to ask, but when you know what's important to them and you make that connection, and a lot of them, for the most part, they're going to want to work. They want part of that business. It's interesting enough. It's another project for them. It's not just a money investment. Is they know business and they find a good idea that they can come along with, and if they can't see themselves having dinner with you and your family, they're not interested, because they're going to be spending the next couple of years with you,
So
building your business.
here's what I love about that, guys, is being a banker, right? We always try to build those type of relationships, but as I'm going to ask for money, I feel it's more transactional. So I love that you guys are saying that. Like, listen, this is going to be a relationship. It's not like, hey, can I borrow $20? And that is, I think many people don't put that thought into the pitch deck, right? Is that, hey, Brian, you and I are going to be together for 3 to 5 years here on this. We need to
I would imagine most business owners are thinking, boy, as soon as I get the funds,
bye-bye.
I'm not talking to them again.
Right. I'll send you a check. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of that depends on the source. So if it's just the money transactional, and that's who fits and is a good suit for your project, your business, your ask, then that works fine. But even a bank, they're going to sit there and say, yeah, it's transactional. The banker's usually not going to come over for dinner. You're not going to get that cup of coffee, but you know what? They're going to expect along the way some reporting done. So it very much depends on who you're pitching to and what your needs are.
Which again changes the format of the pitch.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so I just want to add, even with the banker, you still want to build that relationship, because if you have a bad month or you have a couple of bad months, they know people, right? And so a lot of the smaller the smaller banks in the area, right? So if you're looking for the SBA or whatever, you're a small business, you want to know who your bank is. You want to know. When I walk into the bank, everyone in that bank knows my name. So it's a small bank. Actually, they're part of a larger bank, but that is just a small branch here that we have that rolls up into a larger bank. But when I walk in, I get treated like gold. If I need something, they take care. If I have a problem, they bend over backwards to help me. So you're still going to build that relationship, even if it is a bank. And I do advise on entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting out, find that small bank in your community and build the relationship.
Wholeheartedly agree with that. You can't just cold turkey pick a bank. I think enough people have learned stay away from the smaller banks, the local banks, and because the bigger banks have a tendency to have more relationships and more people that can come in to help you out. Plus, they have more benefits and perks for you to use, at their fingertips that maybe a smaller bank might not have. So what are some of the issues you run into when dealing with clients that maybe setbacks that you help correct? You help them. You're helping them format this pitch deck, and you're helping them do so to each person that they're pitching to. So it's a different one every time, I would imagine.
So I recently reviewed a pitch deck, and it's a brilliant product. Like, everybody in the world should be using this product. And loved what they were doing, loved the science behind it, loved every piece of it. But when I went through the pitch deck, they had their logo on the very front, and it was, tiny, 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 and there were maybe 3 colors in it. And then I went through the pitch deck and I'm going through it, and there was no branding. There was no cohesiveness of the organization. And that was the first thing that stood out to me. And that was what I asked them, do you have a branding package? And their response to me was, a what? What is that?
Right. Yeah. Same thing. We have marketing, we have sales. I mean, how are you getting this? Because here's another problem I would imagine you've run into is business owners. You want to narrow down what your market is, right? And you ask a business owner, okay, this widget, it's everybody and anybody in the world should have this. You can't say that, right? You can't say, who are you going to sell to? Who's your market? Oh, everybody.
Right.
That's never going to work.
We run into that, and also the whether it's the customer journey, how does that work, and trying to explain it, but you need to know it yourself in order to convey that and communicate that. Of course, we can help with that. That's not the issue here. That's some of the problems that they show up with, and they're like, yeah, but I'm making sales now. Once you go past your friends and family and the referrals, the happenstance referrals, now what? What's the whole system look like? And they're kind of dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a system in place. They haven't written anything out. Who's your target market? How are you going to reach your target market? Are you going to develop the relationships? Because most often people aren't buying just sight unseen, right? What is this product or service going to do for me? How is it going to help me? Is it worth what I need right now?
Well, and that, Bill, goes back to when I'm looking at the numbers and you're growing this out to $25 million. And then my next question is, where's the study? How are you basing this that you're going to be able to sell this much? And if you don't have a good study in place on proof of concept of what you put together, then that it's not helping you. So you want that proof of study to come back, and you want a good number of people that looked at it. You want to know that after you built the product, whatever it is, that people tried it then and they said, yes, I have to have this. And yes, I would pay this. And you want to make sure that that's broad. And then you want to look at, is this a female product? Is it a male product? What age group am I targeting? And so when you're building that forecast, I want to know how you got to those numbers. You can't, anybody can put it on a piece of paper that we're going to send $25 million of this, but where is, I'm going to call it science, but how are you proving these numbers out?
One way I've learned how to handle that is to front run it by going out and saying, if this were to become available, would you be interested? And how interested would you be? And getting that response is supportive to what your efforts are and what you're asking for. That's something I didn't know before. I learned that in the last year or two.
Well, I have a dear friend who built a product and was going to take it to market, and she missed a key component. People wanted to buy it. She priced it. Yep. What she didn't take into account is what was the cost to build it. And so she was underwater. Everybody wanted it, but not at a price that she couldn't deliver it.
Yeah. And that's what I love about what you guys do, right? Is that I come to you with, with the sonogram, say, here's my baby. And you're like, yeah, but let's talk about that baby when it's 13. You know what I mean? You help us, you help business owners, you help us see, hey, here's what kindergarten looks like. Here's what 12th grade looks like. And that is a hard vision, because all we see is this is our baby. We love it. It's beautiful. Look at this thing. And it's going to be great. And to your point, if I jump into it, then all of a sudden I'm upside down. then it's a great product that has gone to waste because, I didn't see what kindergarten was going to be for it.
That's why you never bring the business owner on a sales call. Because the business owner is saying, it's my baby.
Right.
What
Right.
do you mean you don't want it?
Right.
Trust me, golden rule, never bring a business owner on a sales call.
Yeah.
But Francesca, and Ryan, so when I was putting together a pitch deck, one of the things I did was, all right, here's my market. In this case, there was 7 million people I have an opportunity to sell to in that market. If I only capture 3% the first year, I'll make at this price, I'll make this amount of money. Do you go through that kind of a process?
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Brian.
Francesca. Go ahead.
Yeah, so absolutely. And so my question to you then is, you're going to capture 3% of the market. How are you going to do that? What is your marketing plan? And so this is Brian's expertise. And so Brian's going to look at that and say, yeah, that's not going to generate that, right? So he's going to know. If you're going to be sending out postcards to your friends, Bill, and you think that referral is going to go out from there, Brian's probably going to say to you, I don't think that's going to work, Bill. I love you, but I don't think that's going to be what we need to do.
Brian does one of these. But that, and I laugh, right? But that's the honesty that a lot of people don't give business owners. Is, oh, look at the baby, and you're like, oh, with the thing go eat your baby, right? With Brian being able to do that and go, yeah, let's bring this back to reality. That's huge, because when you have that pitch deck and you're going to ask people to invest into you, and so many times,
but I have the best mousetrap ever. And I know how hard can 3% of the market be to capture with the best product ever?
I just got to put it out there. Yeah,
I have a website. That's my favorite.
Right.
But I have a website.
I got a website.
Yeah, maybe it's the landing page, but yeah.
So two other things I just wanted to bring up. I know we've been talking about like looking for millions of dollars and those types of things. There are groups out there that will loan less than $500,000. And then there are some other groups that they start at that $500,000. And some of the groups want equity. Some of them don't want equity. They just want debt, and that's it. And so there's lots of different places to go to look for these people. And Brian and I have this in our network. There's also, we're very connected with a group that really is trying to help women, because women have a harder time getting funding. And it's not because they're not smart. They are smart. They're not in front of the right people. So we have that as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, let's say you're going to go out and do your pitch, right? You've never done a pitch. Brian and I can put you in a room with very smart people, and some of them would invest, and do the trial run.
That's cool.
And get those questions that you may not have thought of, or I liked it, but you need to work on this, or whatever the case may be. So we have that also in our network that we can help teach you, show you how to do the pitch, and then put a trial on, a test, and put you in front of highly intelligent business people who may invest, but who will take the time to sit and talk to you.
And honest feedback. I'll tell you this, even after the coaching, and they come in and they'll wear, their straw hat, and it's not a pizza they're selling. So they would come in, they're going to say, you could have picked something better for this. And they'll be brutally honest. You're the color of your face, you're so washed out. But they're gonna tell you, they're gonna lay this out. It says first impressions. Let's start there.
Yeah, so incredibly important.
Mhm.
Don't ever think that you can just walk into it and wait. You're dealing with professional folks that this is what they do for a living. They invest in businesses and they expect you to grow. They're not. I'm kind of familiar with some of the numbers, and especially in Silicon Valley, where they expect to fail 7 or 8 out of 10 times of their investments. But not everybody has that luxury because they're not handing out millions and billions. But when you are talking on these smaller levels, under 5 million, let's say, it's so incredibly important you've got to play the role. You got to play the part. You got to be convincing that look, I'm passionate about what I do. I've got my ducks in order. I'm ready to rock and roll, but I just need these monies. I need these funds. Make it happen.
I sat through a pitch once, and the gentleman sitting next to me was a finance person. And after the gentleman finished his pitch, I looked at the person sitting next to me and I said, I have no idea what his product is. And he looked at me and he said, I couldn't tell you what his product is either. And he was looking for a substantial amount of money, but his product was so out there, so out of the box, and he couldn't explain it to a point. And I think I'm somewhat intelligent. I had no idea what he was.
I know you to be very intelligent, and that's important because maybe the business owner isn't the right person to be presenting.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like I said, don't ever bring a business owner on a sales call. Worst thing you can do. Maybe they're not the right person to do the presentation and the pitch.
Well, and I think a lot of that comes down to really honing in on what it is that your product does and for whom. And I think for anybody who's listening, never has gone to a networking event at all, and they do the elevator pitch, 30-second pitch, whatever you want to, about you and your business. And they're kind of in this funnel trying to focus around what it is that they do, what problems did they solve for whom. And it's almost, teeth biting experience, and you feel kind of bad for these people. At the same time, you're like, yeah, I can help you with this. if you'd be teachable, we can help you with this. And it's the same in
be teachable, yes.
Well, I'm sorry, I missed that.
If you're teachable.
If you're teachable, very much so.
So this just got texted in. It sounds like even if you're not asking for money, having a good pitch deck is a good idea, but is it any different than your business plan?
Yeah, I think a business plan it's a good outline or maybe a roadmap, but now you're conveying a little bit more detail and to whom again. Your starting point versus what's all your projections going to look like. I think a lot of what a business plan does can be in a pitch deck. So I don't think it's not going to hinder it, but it's more than that.
Well, let me add to that then. What about an executive summary, which is different? I know when I was working on with some folks in your arena, they wanted not just a pitch deck, but an executive summary.
And I think that's good too. How are you going to put that on a slide? Because you start writing too much on a slide and people aren't going to stop and read it. And it depends again, who are you pitching to? And I will say this, and we didn't talk about a one sheet, and it's kind of difficult to put your entire business plan on and projections. What's your product? All on a one sheet. But you can float that out to at least see if there's interest enough to get the whole pitch deck for an introduction. Does this look like something that you would be interested in? Let me do an introduction for this. I think taking the information, perhaps what you have and I've seen, 3, maybe 4 pages up to, 24 for your business plan, depending on how in depth you want to go. And that's another issue. The answer, how good is your starting point?
you know, this is where YouTube brings such great value, because if business owners are trying to do this on their own, they have no idea about the sharks out in these waters.
Sure don't.
And these are big sharks, and they're hungry, and they will take advantage of you. And this is not just in the U.S., it's global. You know, I know certain parts of the world won't talk to you unless you're looking for 10 million and up or 100 million and up. But you try to take this on your own without experience in that world and knowledge of what you're doing. I would beg you not to do that. I would beg you to reach out to folks like Francesca and Brian, who can help you through these shark-infested waters. I mean, do you agree? There's a lot of talent.
So just
Go ahead, Francesca.
so I just wanted to add two things. So with respect to a business plan, like Brian said, it could be 4 to 28 pages, however long that business plan is. So think of your pitch deck as a beautified cliff notes of what might be in your business plan. And then depending upon what you're looking at, we may take it down and take it a little bit more granular on some of the financial information. And then the other piece, and I forgot what I was going to say, so go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say this would be an opportune time for the plug of the book, and it's the Triple Threat, and you can find it on greenorchid.co in the pitch deck section, and it's absolutely free. We want people to it'd be so much nicer if they would come to us prepared, but we understand if they're not, and that's what we're here for.
All right, we're going to get that up on the screen for you, that link, because I was next going to ask you, if folks are interested in working with you wonderful people, how would they find you? You see the website that we'll get up there in just a moment is one way, but how else might they be able to get a hold of you?
Well, from the website, they'd be able to grab a number, get together with us. I think do your due diligence, and we're here. We'll talk. We're an open book. Sit down. Let's have a people call it discovery call, a one-to-one, a human to human, or H to H. But we're open. We'll sit down and see what your goals are, and if we think we can help, we'll tell you. And if there's somebody we can refer out, I think that we have a big enough network that we're comfortable enough to do that. I will say, if you're a carpenter, everything starts looking like a nail, and we have such a huge network that we don't get pigeonholed into one particular thing. So, people talk about websites. I've talked people out of websites because my toolbox is much bigger than just having a website. And we have a network that we lean into, and we do that for our clients' behalf.
That's outstanding, because there's a lot of folks that still believe that just advertising on Facebook and LinkedIn is going to bring in a whole bunch of business for you.
It doesn't.
So if you go to the pitch deck screen, you'll see that's my book that I wrote, or that I was co-author on. But if you go to pitch decks, you'll see, so scroll down just a little bit and you'll see the Triple Threat. There it is. And so that's the flip book that we were talking about.
Nice.
And then if you get in touch with us, just get in touch with us. And Brian and I, like Brian said, we're both very giving people and very interested in helping people out and getting them down the right path.
I can't tell you, it's refreshing to see folks like you, because I know there's a lot of sharks, like I mentioned. And when you're dealing with money, you're always going to have a bad side trying to find a way in.
Working with Francesca and Brian too can save you a lot of money in trousers. I mean, you're not going to wear your knees out begging for money, right? I mean, please, I need some money, right?
Yeah.
They will walk you through it, and of course the Triple Threat. This is a huge thing, and you just get it and check it out because you need to. I mean, if you and listen,
I'd like to order 10 of these books because I already know 10 people I'd like to give it to.
Go for it. Just give us your credit card right over the.
Hey, we give it away for free. Just the price of a link to send it to them.
I'm ready to give out to up to about $50. We're looking at 100% return per week. Interest rate. But because it's a scary world though. Going out and asking for money because one of the thoughts as a business owner is how much time am I going to have to give up? And if you have to probably be advisory to the business owner saying, well, what are you willing to give up? I mean, we watch Shark Tank, right? We hear about all those deals and people say, oh, I'm not willing to give that much up. But I'll take less money for a lower percentage or something. You help provide with those strategies?
I think here's what could happen. Here's what a particular, if we are, like I said, we already have a dossier on each of our funders. So we know what they're going to be looking for. And if that particular business is a good match, I say, now I'll introduce you to them and we'll make this great. Understand, here's probably what they're going to be looking for. And are you okay with that? And come into the idea of, what's your non-negotiables ahead of time. And that's very valuable for you as an individual, but as a negotiator, working this out. What's your non-negotiables?
Yeah, everybody goes into that pawn shop with great expectations.
Right. Hallelujah.
And so I'll tell you, there was one group that we were working with, and when they sent me over the pitch deck that they had put together, it looked like a high school person basically put it together. And I said, this isn't going to get you anywhere. And then they started telling me how much money they wanted to get. And I said, it's not enough money. Like, why wouldn't you ask for the whole project? Let's just get this knocked out. But they were afraid, and that fear came into it. And so then they went ahead and they said, yeah, we're not going to do this. And I said, fine. And so now a year later, I hear back from them. They're looking for more money because they didn't ask for the money up front. Wow. And they can't get the project finished now, but they didn't want to listen. And we talked about that earlier about being coachable. And so sometimes when you don't get a deal or somebody says, yeah, I don't want to do it, there's a reason why. And so I would just speak to fear. And I did explain to them, I have teams of people that can help pull this out of the ground for you. So let's not worry about that, but let's ask for all the money that you need to get the project done.
So all the money that you need, I've got contracted people helping me build my business. It adds up to about $300,000. Then I've got my payroll at $150,000 for the year, maybe $450,000. You also add in costs are going to go up, right? Maybe you're going to need to hire another 1 or 2 employees. Maybe you're going to need to add additional insurance. Maybe you're going to add a truck. These are things I know you probably, I know you do you know these things, but a lot of business owners don't. They just say, okay, here's the exact number I need. And I agree with you. You don't want to have to go back to the trough too early, and you certainly don't want to do it too often. You're going to wear out your investor.
I think it's important is once you do factor all that in, here's really, and you got a little buffer in there, and here's what we're looking for. No matter what that number is, you can back into it and say, okay, let's break that down into stages. And then what points are we going to hit before we release the next set of money that makes sense to be successful? Because they're not loaning money for you to fail. I think that's really, they want to help you succeed because that's how they get their money back in their investment. So it's very important and asking for it all up front so that they can see the full picture. And then you can work out different stages.
Okay, so now I ask for all the money up front. More than likely, I'm probably going to need some more money again. Do you bring that into the conversation when you're asking the first time, when you're in that first pitch?
Well, yeah, and I think Francesca really gets it. When do you become profitable? you got this money and it's going to take 6 months to implement it. And then at what point do you become profitable? Well, let's look at what those costs are going to be. And do those numbers really work? Because, oh yeah, I'm going to make a ton of money, less my costs. And they didn't factor in, again, whether prices go up, gas goes up, how does that affect the bottom line? And it's huge, but you got to factor that in. And I tell you what, they'd rather you not need the money, but they have it already set up for it, than you come back and ask for more.
It's a great point. You know what? This has been a very fast hour.
I know.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up. We're just a bit past or so. But as Francesca knows, these shows, when you're on them as a guest, it goes very quickly. And I want to thank you both for coming on with such an important subject for business owners and all those who want to make money.
And listen,
Reach out to us if you want to get a hold of them,
or just go to www.greenorchid.co. Get that book, get in touch with them. They've got a contact us page there. Listen, these guys are awesome at what they do, award-winning. Let's make sure we utilize it.
Absolutely. Francesca, thank you for coming back on the show. Brian, great to have you.
Appreciate it, Bill. Thank you very much. Ken, as well.
Thank you,
We'll talk
guys.
again in the future.
Promise here at 216 The Net. This has been another episode of Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. Thanks for getting stuck in the net.